Let's see.
Greetings, I am Kavicia Brown from Alabama State University.
I'm Ramon Cooper from the University of Alabama at Birmingham, and we're here today to talk to you about money, more specifically, financial aid and the financial aid process. In higher education, it's not uncommon for institutions and governing bodies to drop acronyms.
And this presentation is no different. You may hear us refer to N4A throughout our discussion. And for those who are unfamiliar, N4A is the National Association of Academic and Student Athlete Development Professionals. So now it's FAFSA time. So what does that acronym stand for? It stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. This determines how much financial aid you may be eligible for so that you may budget throughout your college career. FAFSA also differentiates between types of aid available. This can be grant and scholarships, loan, work-study jobs, military aid, tax benefits, and aid for international study. In order to locate and get to the FAFSA, you would need to go to studentaid.ed.gov/SA/. Once on the site, you'll see a few icons that you can toggle through. Some of them are types of aid, criteria, repayment options, and more. When applying, there are a few things to keep in mind that are considered when being awarded. These things are need-based, whether you are a citizen or non-citizen, a regular student enrolled or accepted in an eligible degree program, if you're half-time for a direct loan, your satisfactory academic progress, and whether you have a high school diploma or a GED equivalent. There are three things to always remember though when applying for your FAFSA, and those are the three deadlines for the state, your school, and your federal. When it comes to your school, it's specific to the institution, so it's always key to check on the institution's website to locate the deadline for the institution's FAFSA. For your state, this also varies by state. But federally, the deadline is June 30th, 2021. But what if I mess up or they need something else? Well, corrections are due September 11th, 2021. So you have time between the deadline to submit to correct any materials that you may need for your FAFSA. So when it comes to filling out the application, there are a few do's and don'ts that will help aid you into successful completion. So always remember to apply and be aware of the deadlines. Never be intimidated by the process. Always gather all the necessary documentation and never wait until the last minute. A FAFSA usually takes up to 30 minutes to complete, including getting your pen in the multiple stages. Never skip out on applying for the FAFSA. Add your school codes and print student aid reports for your records to keep should you need to go back to them. Never rush through without double checking information is correct. Always allow the IRS to retrieve and help automatically transfer information. This is an icon that you can click on as you navigate through your FAFSA. Never forget to check if everything is processed. Expect to get pulled for verification to provide proof of financial information, and don't discard any financial paperwork used to fill out your FAFSA. So you're going to be asked whether you are an independent student or a dependent student. If you're a dependent student, you're going to report your own information and your parents' information. If you're independent, you'll report your own information, and if you're married or have spouses. Now, dependent versus independent depends on your age, marital status, veteran, and source of support. If you're a dependent, your parents or guardians who provide more than 50% of your financial support, and those whose students have lived with more should be put on your application. After submitting, you will receive an email regarding all submitted materials. The turnaround time and communication methods for each institution varies, so always double check your email for updates on your process. So there's some quick facts when it comes to the FAFSA. With Pell Grants, the maximum awarded can be up to $6,345. This is split between the fall and the spring semester. At minimum, you can get up to $700 for Pell Grant. And the maximum expected family contribution, which is the EFC, is $3,600. Another thing to remember is that you always have to file for your FAFSA every academic year and can receive a Pell Grant no more than 12 semesters, which equals 6 years consecutively. Your Pell Grant, however, can be used for anything you desire after cost of attendance and other academic and university bills are paid.
It's a great segue, Kavicia. Let's look into how we can determine exactly how much of the financial aid you can expect to receive. And so, as Kavicia mentioned, you have to file for that FAFSA every year. Don't forget to do it. But what FAFSA will use is the prior year's reporting tax information, which means it's going to be tax info from 2 years ago. For example, for this 2021-2022 academic year, the tax information used on your FAFSA will be from the year of 2019. Now, your cost of attendance is going to be the amount it will cost you to go to school. What we'll take away from that is that EFC Kavicia mentioned earlier. And so your EFC is going to be an index number that your college's financial aid staff will use to determine how much financial aid you would receive if you were to attend their college. The information you report on your FAFSA form is used to calculate your EFC. Let's take a deeper dive into what cost of attendance is. And remember, every college has a different cost of attendance. Most 2-year and 4-year colleges will calculate your COA to show you your total cost for the school for the entire year. For instance, for the fall semester plus the spring semester. Schools with programs that last a different period of time, for instance, an 18-month certificate program, might give you a COA that covers a time period other than a year. If you're attending at least half time, your COA is an estimate of tuition and fees, the cost of room and board, or other living expenses for students who do not contract with the school for room and board, the cost of your books, supplies, transportation, loan fees, and miscellaneous expenses. Those could include a reasonable amount of documented cost of maybe a personal computer, for say, and an allowance for childcare or other dependent care, costs related to disability, and or reasonable cost for eligible study abroad programs. Now, there are additional grants and funding options as well. You'll want to make sure you check with your state and your state website to determine what those grants may be at the state level. You must meet their financial and academic criteria to be eligible and to retain it. In terms of academic merit-based scholarship, each institution will post standards that you will be eligible to receive based off of your academic metrics at your high school. It could be a single year or a renewable award based upon the achieving criteria that is set by your school. Also, if your parent or guardian has served in the military, active duty, post 9/11, you could qualify for the Montgomery GI Bill. There's 36 months of eligibility for this award. And then lastly, there are awards that are offered at the local and national level. To find out what you may qualify for, tap into your high school guidance counselor, local businesses, go to collegescholarships.org, or just do a simple Google search. These awards could also be single year or renewable based upon the achieving criteria that is also set by your institution. Here's another way in which you can get paid from the federal government to work while in school, the Federal Work Study Program. Let's take a deeper dive into what exactly federal work study is. So FAFSA will differentiate between the types of aid, grants, scholarships, loans, and work study jobs, military aids, tax benefits, and other aid for international study, as Kavicia mentioned. And this is just happens to be one of those. What the Federal Work Study Program does is it gives you a part-time job as either an undergraduate, graduate, or even a professional student that qualifies for financial need. The money can be used to pay for educational expenses. It can be available to full and part-time students, and it's administered by the schools that are participating in the federal work-study program. So you're going to want to check with your school's financial aid office to find out if your school actually participates. Well, how much can you make? Right now, the national federal minimum wage is $7.25. It's important to pay attention to the news, though. There are heavy discussions right now going on at the national level about raising that wage up to $15. If the state's minimum wage is higher than that $7.25, you could actually earn that as well. The money is awarded based on when you apply, your level of financial need, don't forget that EFC we talked about earlier, or your school's funding level. There's going to be more funding out there outside of what the federal government can offer. The next thing we're going to discuss is an athletic-based scholarship. It's important to note that there are 3 levels of athletics that kind of governs athletics at each respective institution across the country: the NAIA level, the NCAA, and the Junior College Association. The aid could be full or partial. This slide here will kind of explain that full and partial breakdown as it relates to those different associations that we discussed in the previous slide. The NCAA Division I level offers full scholarship for FBS institutions. Those are institutions that have football programs that you see playing every January for that national championship title. Also, those schools get full scholarships to the men's and women's basketball programs, as well as the women's volleyball program. The scholarship can cover tuition and fees, room, board, and course-related books. The coach for each of those respective sports will determine the funds given to the student athlete, and the additional sports at the FBS level, as well as those at the FCS level, those are the football programs that have a playoff system. They can receive full or partial aid. The partial funds are divided up amongst the team. Now let's look at Division II as well as the NAIA schools. Those schools operate under a partial scholarship model. Just like we said before with those FCS institutions and those other sports at the FBS level, the funds can be divided up amongst the team. The scholarship will still be based on overall school and athletic department funding. Next, Division III. These schools do not offer athletic scholarships. Aid is based on grants and academics. Now let's recap. Division I, colleges may grant full academic scholarships. We already talked about it, covering tuition, book, fees, room and board, but you can also get up to $250 in course required supplies and transportation costs one time per academic year to get to and from college. At the Division II level, your scholarship is limited to tuition, books, fees, but you can also get that $250. At the Division III level, we've already discussed, you're not permitted to receive any athletic aid. Team scholarships at each of these levels will vary by state and also by the association doing the ruling. And now, here's another option to receive aid. It's one that we don't always encourage, but we understand that it may be necessary, and that is a federal student loan. So let's break down the 3 types of loans. The first being a subsidized loan. These loans are applicable for undergraduates who demonstrate financial need, but it's important to note that they do not accrue interest while the student is in school, at least half time, or during deferment periods. The next type of loan is unsubsidized. This is available to undergraduate, graduate, and professional students, but it is not based on financial need. And therefore, interest is charged during the time the student is in school, deferment periods, and grace periods. And lastly, the Parent Plus loan. This is a federal loan placed in the parent or guardian's name, and it's based off of their credit history. If the Parent Plus loan is denied, then the subsidized loan amount will then increase. So on behalf of Kavicia, myself, and N4A, we want to thank you for being a part of today's presentation. We also want to know your thoughts and any questions that you have. So a feedback survey will be sent to you at the conclusion of viewing this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.